Welcome back to a new week and a new video at McDaniel Motorsports here. I'm Chris, and we are in the midst of slapping stuff on this Charger again and again and again. So we have our grill, after painting the grill shell 6 times, finally settled on good enough, and I'm still not good at painting, but there's paint on it and there's clear coat on it, and I'm cool with it, and hopefully you are too. The grill assembly is being assembled right now as we speak. This is going to go on the car pretty soon after we get our accessories back on. No sense in putting it on now. We'll have to reach over 2 feet of all that extra grill shell, but we've got all the correct washers and fasteners. Well, semi-correct. They're supposed to be for this car, but they're probably not the correct exact fastener. But yeah, this was all powder coated, the whole frame, and I've got a little kit there from OER, and things are looking good. So, oh, and I did get some new used mod or actuators for the headlight doors. They're all painted up and looking pretty. Let's see what else. Oh, so I ended up this panel goes on the firewall for the vintage air system. I painted that last week. Also not the greatest, but it works, and it has, if you squint, you can probably see the orange peel on it, but it'll be in the shadows and you won't notice it. But strangely enough, my powder coating guide didn't have a color that was even remotely close to this. You can see the orange peel there. That's okay. Being in the engine compartment, it's in a shadow all the time, and it's not going to be a big deal. And I thought about blocking it down, but you know, the rest of the engine compartment is not blocked, so it actually matches very well. And it is the paint that we used on the car. So got it all siliconed up, and I'm going to apply it to the firewall right now, get these fasteners tied down. So we're making a good seal from the elements into the cab. So here we go. Alright, so got to get this block off plate on, and what happens is when you do the vintage air system, it actually becomes a recirculating system only. And I know why they did it, because it's more efficient that way, so you're not bringing in outside air and having to recondition it down and pull all that outside air heat through your evaporator coil, which makes it struggle more. But in mild temperatures, obviously that's not a big deal. But the recirc is always the most efficient way to go. When you're blending outside air, I might go into dork mode here in a sec, but when you're blending outside air with recirc air, it's referred to as an economizer in air conditioning tech terms, which means you're saving energy, supposedly. But so strangely enough, this side doesn't have posts sticking through like the other side does. And also, I called Vintage Air and I'm like, you guys only sent me one block off plate, and they actually intended that and said, oh, we don't know, you know, you just do whatever you want on that side. I'm like, oh, great, thanks. So expect that. Gonna have to make something for that side. All right, so I'm back. Got my different colored pen, so I didn't like the way that other one laid out. It's too close to the flange on this far side next to the A-pillar. So I'm going to remark my spots here. The plate looks symmetrical, so it's kind of a weird deal. This part requires a helping hand on the other side of the firewall. Now I gotta put some, after I level it, gotta be totally level with the car. And then I put in some other sheet metal screws up here once I level it, so that this will actually determine, you know, level. So it actually, the evaporator pan can actually drain with gravity, so it'll actually go out the bottom. So let me get set up to do that. I'm almost out of battery here, but we're gonna tighten up the evaporator here and see how level it ends up being. Good?
Yep.
All right.
I didn't put it super tight, just snug.
Okay. So this. Alright, so I've got my holes marked here, and it's really difficult to see. This is the high. Strip those. Okay. I can always adjust it later. However, it's pretty darn good. All right, now get this stuff out of the way. We'll get back to electrical. Starting electrical. Emergency brake actuator installed. We have emergency brakes now. They still need adjustment, but we're gonna do that when the back tires are off the ground and the car is running, so we know how well they work. So yeah, happy about that. It's been a long time coming. Remember how bent that rod was? We were able to straighten it out. Now it looks like it's supposed to be bent upward, but I'm gonna get the dash shell on before I determine what that needs to look like. And we're missing that little clip that holds the spring back. But yeah, one more part on the car and off the shelf. So we're happy about that. And look, it all matches too. It's almost like you could drive this thing. There's a gas pedal in there, I promise. Well, not gas pedal, but gas pedal bracket is in there. So we have a clutch, and that's that little switch for the Dakota Digital dash display to put it in different modes and set parameters and whatnot. So yeah, things are looking good. That is a brake switch, a really old one, but I bet you it works compared to today's trash that we get overseas. So all right, let me install this MSD box. Alright, so just to ensure that I'm not going to make another mistake and drill more holes in my car than I have to, with this guy here, I feel pretty good about it, but I just need to make sure that the hard lines that come to the evaporator, the high and low pressure lines that go through these holes here, won't interfere with that box. So before I mount the box, I'm going to mount all of the refrigerant lines. So I've got those, and this is pretty cool. I didn't realize that Vintage Air actually sends these things already made up. They used to just send one end made up, and then you had to make up the other ends, or take it to a hose, or a hydraulic hose place. Or so I actually had the tool to do that, but to my surprise, all these hoses in this bag, I should have taken them out sooner. But they're all ready to go and be put on. So that was kind of my holdup. I kind of was anticipating that, so I wanted to do the wiring before it all got in the way. But what a pleasant surprise. Thanks, Vintage Air. So I'm going to put these two guys on and just kind of work my way back to the evaporator, just to make sure that I'm not making another mistake and I don't have to repaint the car. So here we go. So now that I have the evaporator mounted, I can start placing all the electrical components. And I'm really big on hiding everything under the dash where you're not going to see it. But there's some issues with ignition components that can't run near other components, such as the Dakota Digital dash. So the MSD box is going to have to be on the other side of the interior of the car of that. I can't run that near anything. So I'm planning on pushing that as far to the right as I can, but up and underneath the dash so you can't see it. But here's what I'm using, and it's electrical time. So this is the part for the entire body, or basically this has engine, headlights, taillights, body, everything is all inclusive. It's a very expensive kit, probably the most expensive one I've purchased, but in their defense, it is definitely the most complicated one I've ever purchased from these guys. But I like American Auto Wire. It's veteran owned, which is really cool. I'm happy to support these guys, but they make a great kit, and having installed several of these, I'm a believer. Some of the plugs are a little hokey, but then again, these cars came with hokey fasteners to begin with, so I'm not worried about installing this. But the tricky part is when you start incorporating other things like the MSD. This is actually spoken about in the instructions for the American Auto Wire. This is very standard as far as they're concerned. You can also do points, ignition, and a ballast resistor with this kit as well. They tell you how to do it. It's real straightforward. You do have to use a one-wire alternator. So I have an externally regulated alternator in my car, and I believe I can jump one of the fields to the other side and make it a one-wire alternator. I'm not sure if it works on Chrysler alternators or not. And then we have the Vintage Air stuff. This is a real simple, it's just got a few relays in it. It's a full harness with a fuse, and it's pretty straightforward. And that's for our air conditioning, obviously. Where it gets a little complicated is the retro Dakota Digital dash. So what's really cool about this is you basically you still use the American Auto Wire for your left, right turn signals, headlights, high, low beams, oil pressure, coolant temps. They basically, Dakota Digital sends you all of the sensors except for like a fuel pressure sensor. They support it with this, but they don't send it with the kit. I've read through the entire instructions on this, and it's actually really cool. So instead of going like I was just saying, like left, right turn signals, headlights, all the wires that would normally go to the back of the dash assembly or the gauge cluster, you actually run all the wires to this, and this is the brains of the Dakota Digital system. So this is mounted underneath the dash, and it has an infinite amount of inputs and outputs, way more stuff than I'll ever use. But basically all of that stuff that goes to the gauge cluster will go to this. So I'm real excited about using this and integrating it, just to basically work how the car was meant to work. But it's a new venture for me. I've had the Dakota Digital products before, but basically it was just a signal on the orange truck where I had to use a electronic signal out of the transmission and turn it into a mechanical signal for a mechanical speedometer. So that's their module that they sell for that. Is a pretty solid unit, but I'm really excited to do this. So what I like to do is get all the components placed where I want them, like under the dash, on the firewall, and then run wires to each component. That's been kind of the way I've done things in the past. There's always exceptions, of course, but there's one thing I do have to do is for the firewall bulkhead. They've actually stepped up their game. So in the past, the pass-through for like GM, C10s, they have a bulkhead connector that goes to the firewall, if I remember correctly. And they recommend running just like regular screws through the firewall, and then you have threads sticking out on the other side. It's real hokey. I didn't really like it, so I ended up using nut certs, or the little nut rivet kits for that instead. I just couldn't do the wood screws to the firewall. But they've American Auto Wire has actually stepped up their game, and so here's the bulkhead connector that goes. This will go from the inside of the firewall out. And these holes, while they look enormous, they actually use a 1/4-20 fastener now with a washer that captures these. So there will be, for the engine harness, this is basically just to relay all the engine inputs into the car, like headlights as well, turn signals as well. Everything goes through this. So there's a firewall connector, meaning the outside of the firewall will connect to this, and the two just kind of clamshell together. And it's got a nice seal here, which is really cool. And yeah, I was glad they stepped up their game, because I was kind of dreading the whole screw through the firewall thing, but this looks a lot better. But I do have to drill some 1/4-20 holes, and they supply a sticker, or a template rather, and you install it in the factory hole right there, as you can see. And it's got these little crosshair holes where you drill your little 1/4-20 holes through there. They give you some sort of 0.25, 0.26, some sort of number that converts to like a 1/4 inch. Basically, it's a 1/4 inch 20 screw. Either way, they should have just said that, but either way. So I just have to drill these guys out and then just remove this sticker. This comes right off, and I should be able to put that bulkhead connector right in there and sandwich the engine harness on the other side, and we should have a sealed up firewall for the most part, and then we go from there. So stand by, let me drill these holes. All right, here we go. Drill some holes in my firewall. And yeah, I already center punched these guys. Next, this is 1/4 inch. This is kind of a convoluted little area here. Hopefully this sticker put me in the right spot. Try not to drill through my firewall with it painted too much unless I have to. It's really difficult to plan for every little thing that you're going to drill through the firewall before you paint and all that, because you just not decided on things, and just gotta go with the flow sometimes. But obviously planning for everything is ideal if you can. Right. As you can see, I put tape on the backside where the drill bit protruded out, and hopefully, but the idea behind that is it will keep the tape, or I'm sorry, it'll keep the paint from bubbling. Hopefully. I guess we'll find out here in a second. Let's see how this connector fits. Now you can see the front side, and pulling my tape off the correct way, not out towards you, but kind of flat against the surface, and catches the, you see the shavings there? This one looks like it pulled away. Hopefully it's not. There we go. The shavings there too. Not too shabby. Deburr this a little. Probably gonna have to go up one more size just to have a little wiggle room. Let me grab the engine harness and see how that works. Again, so tech tip on this stuff: once you remove the instructions from each bag, they're categorized. Obviously you can see the floor console kit. Once you remove those instructions, these bags all look the same, and they have extra fittings and connectors in them, and you don't know what they're for. And so there's a lot of parts to this system, so what I like to do is mark the bags, and so the stuff that's in the bags, you know what it goes to, and that keeps confusion down quite a bit, and you don't get overwhelmed. But as you can see, this bag here is what I'm talking about. I removed the dash harness from it, and I have the dash harness here, and this bag is just full of stuff, and I didn't know what it was for. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna get this engine harness out, because this guy actually has the backside to the bulkhead inside. So the engine harness plugs into this guy, but through the firewall. So let's do that. All right, so I've determined that I'm going to put this dash harness actually in the dash before I hook up the bulkhead fitting, which is down there. This mounts, they say it's supposed to mount on the glove box, but this is a vintage air glove box, which comes modified slightly with, I believe, this step is a little bit different. But so what I've come up with is mounting my fuse box into the glove box here, as it says instructions, but it just says mount it in the glove box with 3 screws. So that's not exactly as easy as it sounds. So I'm going to mount this guy. I'm going to make a square hole in here, which I'm currently doing, and then this panel right here goes on the outside. Right, actually it goes like that, and this will be the faceplate of the fuse panel. So this will capture, if it all goes well, this will capture my fuse panel and mount it at the same time. So I'll definitely have to add a couple of holes for more fasteners, and probably 2 more here. But I gotta basically cut this out and basically scrap a line around here, so this guy actually goes through this panel, and then I'll pull these screws out, which have their quarter inch fasteners with nylock nuts on the back, so that will sandwich this piece over the top of that, underneath this guy. So if all goes well and no snags, that is what's going to happen. Wish me luck. Alright, so I have my glove box hole cut, and it actually snaps, or the face of this bulkhead snaps in with these guys here, so that works perfectly. And so the cover plate that goes here, or this cover plate here, I screwed it in because there's some lateral movement that I can't screw up, basically. Up and, top and bottom are already fixed, and as you can see, I need to take a straight edge and mark straight up and down on both sides. So I got to remove this guy again, but now that I have my top and bottom marks, I can proceed with opening up this guy. Alright, so here's where I'm at. So I made that little door that came with the Vintage Air glove box, and I opened up the back of the fuse box here to access these little nuts on the back side of these bolts. So basically I just added this top plate after I opened it up. It looks really good on camera. It's a little wonky in person, but it's in the glove box, it'll be fine. But yeah, I think that's the best solution. So let me get this back together and I'll show you the results. Alright, we're back at it. So this is kind of the design I ended up settling on. It's not done yet, obviously, but so this, I was trying to actually make this fit in here nicely, and I actually went a little too far on this side. That's okay, because there's a catch on the top and bottom of this fuse box that this cover actually goes on and it snaps on. And so what I'm going to do is open up this opening just a little bit further, so this guy can actually sit down on it and snap in and not fall off. So in my haste, I didn't ruin it. I was just going a little too fast for my own good, but I think I'm gonna be okay. And what I'm going to show you is this. This is all kind of trivial stuff, but it's part of building cars. So I also wanted to mention that I'm going to bolt through this guy to the front, so I'm going to have to drill 4 more holes through there for these machine screws to pass through, so it'll all be sandwiched together so nothing moves. As you can see, nothing back here is really able to support it. So and I just bent this guy. This is the factory fuse box tab here, and it's just bent over for, I don't know, if somebody down the line wants to put it back to stock, they can. So so with those being bolted through and my inability to get back here and put these screws back in for this cover, I'm just going to epoxy this cover onto this guy and maybe chase it with some zip ties just to make sure it doesn't come off, because there's some high voltage going through here. Basically all the voltage in the car is going to pass through this whole entire harness, so need to make sure it's secure. So alright, let me get started on making this prettier. Alright, back on the Charger electrical. I just did install the new glove box key, or lock rather, with the keys. It's very nice. And then here's the finished product with what I came up with on the fuse panel. So I just got to load some fuses in there, but aside from that, I think it looks pretty good, and it clicks too, so I won't go flying off when I'm driving. So that's what the front looks like. Nice click. Let's roll this baby over. Alright, so here's what I ended up at the back. As I showed in a previous segment, that I have it through bolted and kind of clamshelled around this glove box insert here, just for being secure. And as I said earlier, this is the stock one, and there's really no provisions on this housing to mount it to the stock location. And frankly, I think this is worth the work to get this secured to this. So basically all I have to do is glue this cover on, or epoxy it on somehow, and once I get finished, I just need to protect that. So, but I wanted to show that I was going to use Plasti Dip on these guys, just to emulate what the factory did, but I ended up finding some shrink wrap that is going to do just the trick, and it's going to take a lot less work. So I went ahead and put some heavy-duty shrink wrap with the glue on the inside on all my factory wiring chase brackets here. So they're all protected. They won't grind through on anything. So happy with that. I'm going to leave them open until I have all the wiring ran through here and where it needs to go. Got my Vintage Air harness here. And then the Dakota Digital stuff we'll get to right now.